Let's talk about the action that took place this week on Wednesday night. We'll begin it with AEW Wednesday Night Dynamite first. It took place once again from Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida on the closed set. Your commentary team for the night was Tony Schiavone and Cody Rhodes. Kenny Omega was in Cody's spot here because Cody was in the opening match here. So we had Cody Rhodes taking on Jimmy Havoc here to start off here. It's a decent match. It's good for what it was. Cody ultimately winds up winning here. He wins in the end after hitting 2 crossroads for the win. The second one kind of looked vicious. After the match, we saw Jake Roberts. He was up on the video screen here cutting a promo, basically mocking Cody and Brandy Rhodes. Very good promo from him. He's always been a good promo, and he really puts over Lance Archer here, saying he wants a match. And the money line here from Jake Roberts in this promo, and if you haven't seen the promo, go see it. He brought out the trust me right at the very end there. Kind of brought you back to that early 90s WWF run of Jake Roberts when he was really outstanding as a heel there when his program with Macho Man Randy Savage, if you remember during that time. That's the first thing I thought of when I heard that. And this was a great promo. It runs about 3 minutes, so go back and check it out if you haven't seen it yet. So once that was over, Cody came back to the commentary desk and said that Lance Archer has no body of work in the U.S. and he just can't debut against Cody. But he does go on to say that Archer will have his first AEW match on next week's Wednesday Night Dynamite. So we'll have to see who his opponent's going to be. So we have that. Next match on the card, we had Darby Allin taking on Kit Sabian here. The match, it's fine for what it was. It's decent. Darby Allin ultimately wins in the end with the Gibson leg lock. He calls it the Last Supper. So a submission win here for Darby Allin here to continuing to build him up. Kip Sabian just kind of looks like a jobber at this point. They're really giving him really not a whole lot at this point. Next match on the card here had Jake Hager taking on Chico Adams. This was Chico Adams' first appearance here. The match does not go very long. Hager wins pretty handily here in a short match, almost a squash, with the head and arm triangle choke. Afterwards, Moxley surprised Hager by attacking him. And then in the backstage interview later on, Moxley said that when they face off for the AEW title, Hager will be carted out on a stretcher or Moxley will, quote, die trying. So Moxley putting over this upcoming match, and that should be a good match when it happens. Looking forward to seeing that. We had this backstage promo here, pre-recorded obviously. Members of the Dark Order, we have Brody Lee, of course, sitting at the head of the table here. He's going to be trying to eat a steak in front of the Dark Order here. We had the 2 members there of the Dark Order. So the 2 guys were, of course, Alex Reynolds and John Silver. So basically, they do a deal here where Brody's sitting at the head of the table eating the steak. He's wearing a suit. At one point, Silver goes to eat before Brody Lee does, and then Brody Lee gets upset about that and kicks him out. So, and then in the other skit here, we see Alex Reynolds actually sneeze when Brody's trying to eat the steak, and he gets all upset and gets furious and all that, and Brody kicks him out. So then he goes on to try to eat the steak. Pretty good stuff here. Now, obviously, this was a shot at Vince McMahon, what Brody Lee was doing, wearing the suit here. Of course, you had Alex Reynolds sneezing. Of course, the legend goes, is that Vince doesn't like it when people sneeze around him because it's just one of those things that gets under his skin, and then I guess he doesn't like when other people eat before him, so I guess that's what they were doing here. So clearly they were having Brody Lee, I'm sure this is all his doing anyways, taking a shot at Vince McMahon. He did it last week by referring to either being someone of an older guy, not believing in him and not trusting him, and then we had this here. So clearly they're taking shots at Brody Lee, with Brody Lee taking shots at Vince. So I guess they're having Brody Lee play a version of Vince McMahon here as the character right now, which, could be fine. So we had that action there, so we had that. Speaking of Brody Lee, he was out for a match next. He took on QT Marshall here. Of course, Brody Lee is the Exalted One of the Dark Order. Not a whole lot to it here. Brody Lee wins pretty handily. QT Marshall gets a couple shots in, but he ultimately wins with the rolling lariat after a Sister Abigail setup. So Brody Lee just looks strong here as he should here. After the match, the Dark Order left the mask for QT Marshall. and that was that. We see Matt Hardy's drone Vanguard 1 flew to Rancho Cucamonga, California to spy on Nick Jackson's recovery from his injury. Of course, we saw how he was allegedly pinned under a garage door and he was bleeding from the mouth and all that kind of stuff. We said this already on the podcast before. He's at home with his wife who was expecting their third child. That's how they rid him off here, by doing this fake attack. So that's what we had there. Your final match on the night here was the AAA Mega Championship title match with Kenny Omega defending the AAA Mega title against Sammy Guevara here. This was a good match, very good match, I thought. Ultimately, it saw Kenny Omega retained by hitting the One Wing Angel for the win. So Sammy Guevara takes another loss here. He's been losing a lot lately, but, I guess he's so over here. I guess a loss really doesn't hurt him here. Final segment of the night here was Chris Jericho. It was supposed to be the Chris Jericho-Matt Hardy confrontation, which we do get. They did a funny little skit here, Jericho did. He actually offered Matt Hardy's drone a spot in the inner circle. The drone flew away and refused. Matt Hardy appeared at the top of the arena like he did the previous week. And then he did this teleportation, which was not very good, by the way. He ultimately works his way down to the ring. Hardy, who mentioned that he was possessed by Demacus, whoever that is, and is over 3,000 years old because, he's doing the old delete stuff that he used to do in TNA. He goes on to say that he won't let the Inner Circle destroy the paradise of All Elite Wrestling. Jericho then tried to get him to join the Inner Circle, and Hardy called him a true hole of an ass. Hardy insisted that the building was full of essences, including Abraham Lincoln and Martin Luther King Jr., but Jericho can't see them because he doesn't believe. Then he was also betrayed by the real Judas. Sammy Guevara attacked Hardy from behind, but then Kenny Omega and Cody came out to make the save with steel chairs, and then Hardy then haunted Jericho and Guevara with fire from the stage. So that's how they went off the air. This was kind of goofy. They were kind of going around in a circle. I mean, it was good, but I thought this kind of stretched a little bit long for me. But it was fine, and obviously they're going to have a program with Matt Hardy and Chris Jericho going forward, which is good. So nothing wrong with that. So that was AEW Wednesday Night Dynamite. It took place from Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. Let's talk about WWE NXT now. It took place from Full Sail University. They're back there this week, but again, no crowd, no audience here. This NXT show was taped. It's Tom Phillips and Byron Saxton on commentary again, like they were on Raw this week. Opening contests, we had Tyler Breeze taking on Austin Theory here. This is a very good match, I thought. Good stuff from these guys. I thought they told a pretty good story in the end. Austin Theory got overconfident towards the end of the match and started filming himself cutting a promo during the match, which allowed Tyler Breeze to actually recover and hit the beauty shot and get the surprise win over Austin Theory here. So Tyler Breeze back in the win column for the first time in quite a while. So good win for him here. We had Killian Dane next up in a contest series taking on, Theodo Miles, I think is how you say his name. If not, I'm sorry. Killian Dane looks pretty good here. He wins in a relatively short match with the Vader Bomb, so Killian Dane continues to get stuff done here. Cameron Grimes and Tony Nese were up next for a match here. Again, this was a good match. I thought these two told a pretty good story. A lot of back and forth action here. Cameron Grimes ultimately does win in the end. He wins and beats Tony Nese after hitting the cave-in for the win, which I thought was a very good match. We see Aaliyah coming into the ring for her match with Xyla Lee next. They cut backstage in a bad edit to show Xyla Lee crying and injured backstage. We don't see her who attacked her, but she's clearly faking selling an injury here. So Aaliyah looked on like she was thinking she was going to get a win here and get the shot in the ladder match to determine the number one contender for the NXT Women's title. But instead, she's given a new opponent, and is the return of Io Shirai here. So these two have the match. It does not go terribly long. Io Shirai, good way to bring her back here. She gets the win over Aaliyah with the moonsault. So Io Shirai is now added to that ladder match to determine the number one contender for the NXT Women's title. We see a mysterious vignette played for Dexter Lumis. That comes up next here, so we have that. Keith Lee was out for a promo here. He's talking about all the stuff going forward with the North American title. Dominik Dijakovic interrupted the proceeding to challenge for the North American title. Damian Priest interrupted them to deliver his own challenge, and then all three guys started brawling with Dijakovic standing tall in the end. Left standing tall here, so we could be getting a triple threat with these guys. We'll have to wait and see. In a pre-recorded video that was taken while he was on vacation, Adam Cole said he wouldn't give the Velveteen Dream a shot at the NXT title, but instead he would give him a match against Bobby Fish, which comes up later on in the show. Tag team competition here, we had Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch taking on Shane Thorne and Brendan Vink. Once again, we saw these guys on Raw, so they're here in a tag match here, and once again, they have a match. It's fine for what it was. Oney Lorcan and Burch wind up winning. Burch wins for his team after he tapped out Vink for the win here. So it's a decent match. It was fine for what it was. Next match for that ladder match here for the determine the NXT Women's Title #1 contender. Here we Candice LeRae taking on Kaden Carter here. It was clear who was going to win this one. It's decent. It's a good match. Actually, I thought it was a pretty good match. Ultimately, Candice LeRae wins in the end as expected. She tapped out Kaden Carter to the Gargano escape to earn her spot in that ladder match. And then finally, your final match of the night here, we had Matt Riddle taking on Roderick Strong here. So this was, this was a very good match, I thought, as well. These ties told a great story. Matt Riddle ultimately won in the end with the Bro Derek, but a very good match. Afterwards, we see two large men in matching gear attack Matt Riddle after the match. We see Malcolm Bivens entered the venue, and then he introduced himself, basically knowing how he and Matt Riddle already knew each other, and then introduced Riddle to the, quote, future of the NXT Tag Team Division. The large men then posed, and then they and Bevin stood over Matt Riddle as the show went to a commercial break. So I think these might have been the same guys that we saw outside here. These kind of look like poor men's version of the Dark Order. At least that's kind of the indication I got here. So we had that. So next week on NXT was announced that Velveteen Dream will be taking on Bobby Fish. We have a second chance gauntlet match featuring Xyla Lee, Deonna Purrazzo, Dakota Kai, Aaliyah, Kaden Carter, and Shotzi Blackheart to determine the final competitor in the upcoming ladder match, which will be airing on television in a couple weeks. And also a North American Championship match featuring Keith Lee, Dominik Dijakovic, and Damian Priest was also announced, so we do get that triple threat match for next week's program. Final segment of the night here, Triple H started to introduce this segment with Johnny Gargano to Tommaso Ciampa, but he was interrupted by Ciampa, and then Gargano came out. Triple H said that he stopped William Regal from, quote, firing both of them after their fight in the PC. He said their rivalry, quote, should end on the biggest stage that there is, but of course, we know what that's not. Gargano argued that all they needed was a ring and a referee. Triple H said he would, quote, find an empty building. We'll have to see where they're going to do this at. Put a ring in it and get a referee, and then they're going to have the match. He added that if their feud doesn't really end with this match, that both Gargano and Ciampa will have to leave NXT and be demoted to the main roster. I'm just making that up, by the way. But he does say that they will leave NXT if this is not going to be the end of it. So basically, Gargano said he would be ready for the match in 2 weeks, so we're going to have the match in 2 weeks. The show ended with Triple H, Gargano, and Ciampa, and then they were interrupted by a vignette hyping the impending arrival of Killer Kross. So it looks like Killer Kross is going to be on NXT to start. So that was NXT that took place from Full Sail University in Winter Park, Florida, in front of no crowd. So there you go. Let's go over the ratings real quick here for the show this week. AEW once again beat AEW Wednesday Night Dynamite beat WWE NXT in the ratings. Dynamite drew 819,000 viewers, and NXT did 669,000 viewers. AEW ranked 23rd for the night in the cable 150, and NXT ranked 56 as far as that goes. And then AEW ranked 71st in viewership, and NXT ranked 78th. AEW was rather down 12% from last week's 932,000 viewers, while NXT was up 23% from last week's 542,000 viewers. This is the lowest NXT viewership for a first-run episode. Of course, the previous week's show was basically a promo-heavy show with no new matches. AEW did a 0.34 rating in the 18 to 49 demo. That's down 3% from last week, while NXT did a 0.20 rating, which was up 25% from last week. Special report on Fox News topped the night in viewership in the 1849 demo with a 0.65 rating and 5.874 million viewers, respectively. Chicago Med on NBC at 8 o'clock topped the night in viewership on network TV for the second week in a row with 9.601 million viewers. The Masked Singer on Fox topped the night in 1849 demo with a 2.2 rating for the second week in a row. So AEW once again won for the night in the total viewership. So through 25 weeks, they lead 21 weeks to 3 weeks for NXT in the one tie. And now for my pick of the week, I'm actually going to go with NXT. This was very close, but I thought NXT slightly had the better action here. It was just a little bit better than AEW. And of course, if you notice, if you were watching AEW, they did not have the wrestlers in the crowd this week. They had them they showed them from time to time in the box backstage. It didn't come off. I didn't think it came off as well as it did last week. I guess they were given the directive not to have the wrestlers in the crowd on either side here because apparently we're only supposed to limit to up to 10 people in a group setting at a time now. So because of the serious situation with COVID-19, the coronavirus, so that's why the wrestlers weren't in the crowd. I didn't think it came off quite as well this week. They did show them in the picture-in-picture box every now and again, but I didn't think that was very effective. They really didn't really need to do that. I didn't think it worked very well. But my pick of the week is NXT. So if you're watching this or listening to this on YouTube, through 23 weeks, I have NXT with 14 picks and AEW with 9 picks.